For 2025, the number one bike officially belongs to Aprilia. That, in itself, is success already. Yes, Aprilia did not win the number one on track, Jorge Martin did, but just 5 to 6 years ago, a reigning champion would have only stepped into Aprilia's garage by some mistake. Now, the project has proved itself worthy of Martin's attention. But with that triumph comes a greater than ever risk of face planting. As Ducati team manager Davide Tardozzi jibed last year, if Aprilia buy this number one, then let's see if they can keep it. This, Tardozzi knows, is a tall order. Aprilia has defied the odds before, its climb has been remarkable, but for the first time in its current MotoGP history, it will be a failure if it isn't winning regularly.
So what we saw today from Aprilia was actually pretty different from what we've seen in recent seasons from them. It was a whole different launch environment, and team launches for this squad in the past few seasons has been, pulling the covers off the bike in the paddock in Losail or in Portimao at the end of pre-season testing. Today we're in the Sky Sports Italy studio, which is this huge facility in Milan. Lots of people here, lots of attention on this, lots of media opportunities, a very slick presentation and display. It's the sort of team presentation that we've seen in the past few years from Ducati, not from Aprilia. They've done something a lot smaller, and it really felt like a different thing today. And the crazy thing is as well, it's rubbed off in the two riders that they've got, because both Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin in the past, we know how talented these guys are. We know how fast they are. But if there's one complaint that you'd maybe throw their way, one criticism, it's that they've maybe not been, like a lot of young riders, the most mature people on the grid, both with, the way that they've handled situations, the way that they've acted. And today, new world champion in particular, Jorge Martin, is a completely different character from what he was even 12 months ago. He's so much more mature. He's absolutely ready to take over the role that his best friend and brother, basically, Aleix Espargaro, has had in the past as the leader of this squad. It's really quite impressive to see the transformation from both Aprilia and their two new signings. And the big question now is really going to be whether or not that translates into track success once we go to Sepang in a few weeks' time for pre-season testing, and then obviously onwards into the first races of the 2025 MotoGP season.
Aprilia has already dodged a massive bullet. Martin's title triumph should matter more to it than most, and the number one plate is only a small part of that. Martin has repeatedly said that he took his 2023 title defeat very, very hard. That doesn't reflect badly on him at all, it is something unavoidable, but now imagine if he narrowly lost again in 2024, this time after a season where he led the points for so long. After that defeat, he would have had to dust himself off, trudge over to the Aprilia garage and get on a bike that right now just isn't as good as the one he's given up at Ducati. It's the kind of thing that could have ruined everything immediately and turned Jorge Martin at Aprilia into, say, Valentino Rossi at Ducati, or Johan Zarco at KTM. Instantly doomed. Would it have been? Aprilia and Martin thankfully do not have to find out. He's playing with house money now. Whatever comes now is a present, he said last year. I won my title and I will live in peace the rest of my life. What this means is that if Martin needs to wait until 2026 to challenge for the title again, he can wait. And he admits that might be possible.
Jorge, we know that obviously at the end of last season you were super, super strong. We know that the bike you were on was super, super strong. We know that the Aprilia was maybe a little step behind towards the end of last season, and we know that switching manufacturers always takes a little bit of time to get back up to speed. Does that mean that, realistically this is the start of a 2-year project to defend the title, or is it going to be that the expectations are a little bit higher in year one?
Yeah, it can be. For now it's really difficult to say what is our position. I feel that, as you said, last season I was strong, but I feel I will be more stronger this season. The missing point, or the question mark will be how I adapt to the bike. It's really difficult to guarantee any result, but the important thing is that I can guarantee my effort at my 100%, all my determination for winning again. So I think this is a big thing, and also from Aprilia I feel this also.
Whether in 2026 or 2025, Aprilia now has the rider to win. But how does it topple the Ducati juggernaut? Get faster is the obvious answer, but here's what that's meant for Aprilia specifically. Its bike's rise in MotoGP was aided somewhat by specialization. At its best, the RSGP was absolutely untouchable at low grip, corner speedy venues, but braking straight, punching out of the corners, not so good. In 2024, though, the Aprilia RSGP became a more rounded bike, which seemed to sacrifice a bit of its edge. So it looked better than expected in, say, Austria, but didn't dazzle in Barcelona like it used to. But a more versatile bike is what you need to fight for a title. Just ask Ducati, which used to have really strong and really weak tracks, and is now just great everywhere. So, does Aprilia need to prioritize track-to-track consistency? Here's what Aprilia racing boss Massimo Rivola had to say.
Massimo, one of the things we saw from Aprilia in 2024 was that maybe the tracks where we traditionally expected Aprilia to be super, super strong weren't quite as competitive, but at some of the tracks that in the past the bike has been a little bit weaker, it was better. It was a more balanced season. Is that one of the things that maybe in the past has been missing from a proper title campaign, something that you've needed to find?
Yeah, for sure, you're right. I mean, I would also say that if in the past we were super good in some tracks, last year we were not as good as we were. But at the same time, we were a bit better in other where we were not so strong. I would say that our weak point was more the race pace and let's say the battle on the race more than the single lap time because and the pure speed. If I tell you that on 20 races, 14 times an Aprilia started on the first row, it means that the bike is fast with the riders we had. So now that everything is new, we need to be as fast as possible to know each other and understand what we need to go fast.
Another issue to tackle is that this is a bike that for 3 seasons now, ever since it's got genuinely competitive, is consistently worse in the final third of the season. Is it because of a less favourable run of track layouts, as that part contains the Asian leg of the championship? Or is it component wear and tear? Or is it the issue of heat at places like Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia? Because the Aprilia is notorious for handling heat badly and for pumping hot air into riders' necks the way other bikes do not.
In the past as well, we've seen, especially towards the end of the seasons in the flyaways, maybe just performance dropping a little bit, some reliability things creeping in. But this year, I think it's fair to say you're making a big statement by bringing 10 GP25s to testing. It hints that there's been some big changes within the structure that should help.
Yeah, it's in a way it will be good to start in a racetrack that we normally are not so good, like Sepang and Thailand in particular, because it's better to struggle at the beginning rather than at the end.
The whole launch has projected a lot of confidence. You would not know just by looking that this is the manufacturer that finished 420 points behind Ducati in the championship last season. Aprilia does not shy away from the pressure. As Rivola said during the launch, a championship must be our target. Probably in 2026, not in 2025, but certainly at some point during this 2-year contract Martin has signed. But don't mistake that for a suggestion. 2025 isn't important, that it's low stakes. The way MotoGP contracts work, Martin will already have a good idea by the end of this year whether he wants to make this a longer term thing into MotoGP's next rule cycle beginning in 2027. And valuable free agents across MotoGP will have a strong idea of whether or not they can really trust Aprilia to finally take that last step. The last step in question? Being a manufacturer that can secure the number 1 plate by grabbing it on track, rather than in contract negotiations.